Hello, I'm Debra Ziff. I was diagnosed with Waldenstrom's over 20 years ago. So if one believes the general prognosis, I'm not actually here today. The reason I am here today, able to talk to you, is due to a team of dedicated medical professionals, the support of a great many good people, and a big dollop of luck. I'd like to share some of my experiences of my Waldenstrom's journey with you, what was helpful, what wasn't, and make some suggestions, if I may, to improve the experience of fellow sufferers who will receive a diagnosis in the future. This is about my personal journey, but there are aspects of my disease that are universal. So I'll be touching on my experience in four main areas. Firstly, the difficulty of getting a proper diagnosis, finding hopefully a doctor already aware of WM and its complexities. Secondly, getting the right treatment once diagnosed at the right time. Thirdly, the need to recognize related symptoms and conditions. Waldenstrom's is a complicated disease which can manifest in different ways. And last but not least, the importance of psychological support for WM patients, which is frequently overlooked by medical professionals. So first, getting a proper diagnosis. Because WM is a rare disease, it took about 7 years for me to receive a confirmed diagnosis. I was in my late 40s, but actually problems were rolling around long before and probably started to really affect me in my late 30s, early 40s. Today, more and more women are being diagnosed, but at that time, WM was considered to be a disease affecting men mostly in their 60s. So as a woman in her 40s, for a considerable time, I wasn't being listened to. I was lectured to a lot about how depressed I was. In my particular case, if I had been diagnosed earlier, I may have been able to avoid or mitigate my peripheral neuropathy. This is a problem which affects my daily life, and I have to invest a lot of energy to manage it. Maybe my skin problems might have been avoided. These related conditions, which I will address further on, placed on me an added burden of symptoms to deal with. Also, I was offered the wrong treatment on 2 occasions before I connected with medical professionals who put me on the right track. But there's no point now in saying that I was given bad advice, and certainly there's much more awareness, and many more women are being diagnosed. We are in a more positive place. So how do we get an early diagnosis? The work of IWMF and others around the world are crucial to get better information to medical professionals. This forum is exactly why I asked to come and speak to you today, to raise awareness from the patient's point of view and how we may cooperate with all you dedicated professionals in order to achieve the best possible outcome. I have also learned there are certain clusters of people who are more prone to WM. It might be effective to identify and contact influential individuals in these populations and raise their awareness of the condition. Next, I'd like to refer to the quality of my treatment once I was correctly diagnosed. So after all those years, I finally knew what I had. However, I had to do active monitoring for a few years. And if I had been under a physician who understood this disease better, I would have maybe been offered the correct treatment earlier. One of my first professors actually said at one point that I understood the disease better than them. More importantly, we are the owner of our illness rather than just a patient of a doctor. We do understand our disease better. It is happening to us. Our bodies feel and experience it. And that first-hand knowledge gives us a very real understanding beyond a book. Eventually, I was lucky enough to connect with Professor Shirley DeSalle and her team at a forum like this one. What was very helpful for me was to have a medical professional, in my case, Professor Shirley, to take the time to patiently explain the possible progression of my disease, what treatment options were available, their pros, cons, and side effects. She has always really listened to my symptoms, which can be quite nebulous, but this is my experience living inside my body. Knowing the details in advance and what to expect takes away some element of anxiety, which is the anxiety of not knowing what to expect, even though no one can tell you what your individual experience is going to be like, nor predict how we react to the various protocols once we start. We are all so different. For instance, is the pain I'm feeling expected or something I should worry about? Do I bother my doctor with this symptom that she didn't mention? If I have diarrhea, do I go to hospital? Should my skin react like this? If my blood pressure skyrockets or plummets, is it a function of the treatment, the WM, or me? Of course, we now have recourse to a huge amount of information on the internet, and it is useful to have such a resource to turn to in order to be informed of the latest treatments coming online in the near future. But even so, communication between a primary doctor and their patient is so important. And for a disease like WM, with a complex set of symptoms, one's doctors needs to have advanced listening skills. The work of Professor Shirley DeSalle was and still is instrumental in helping me understand my disease better. And it's crucial that she and dedicated professionals like her get the backing and funding they need. Now for my third point, the need for more information about connected symptoms and conditions. For years, I suffered from a number of symptoms that I didn't know were connected to my condition. Fatigue, for instance. When I learned of Shirley's research, which confirmed this, I was so relieved. The symptom now had a name and a reason and showed in my bloods. I described this as having jet lag with bells and whistles. There were skin issues. I visited a number of doctors about them, including having chronic urticaria. I was told they were completely unrelated to WM. This is factually incorrect. I also had 3-day rolling headaches, which I learned recently is a symptom related to hyperviscosity, which I know I had early on. So now I'm on a good cocktail of drugs, which did take some time to get right. So my close friends do laugh at me because I am sometimes completely unintelligible. However, I believe I'm being crystal clear. Also, I had to really push to have my hormones tested with all the other bloods, be it perimenopause, post, or whatever place you're at. This led me to take HRT. I have the joy of possessing a burning vagina, which does not behave well when many of its 9,000 nerves are inflamed. Full-blown HRT definitely helps stabilize some of my symptoms, if not all. I do appreciate there is a lot of discussion and controversy around HRT, and some people shouldn't take it. But I can confirm that I personally benefited from it. More symptoms emerged. I began to fall over a lot for no apparent reason. My hands and feet are freezing even in hot weather, like now. I sweat in cold weather, not the best look for a lady. My parasympathetic nervous system is overwhelmed by a sensory overload, which other people experience as completely normal. I had to pee every 20 minutes or so because of an irritated bladder. My blood pressure plummets. I've learned that all these are inflammatory issues, including the fatigue, and are to do with IgM levels in my blood. And I finally understood at a forum like this in London that all these symptoms are part of my condition. And it was at a forum like this that I self-diagnosed my peripheral neuropathy. Another WM patient told me recently they had a particular smell, and he too has significant PN. I have that as well. Within weeks, I had an official diagnosis of PN. My paraprotein started climbing from a low base of 8, and suddenly I was on DRC. That is why the work of IWMF and forums such as these are so important. I would especially like to mention the Rory Morrison questionnaire, which we have in the UK. Is that available elsewhere, I wonder? It's a real-time collection of information on WM patient symptoms, which I believe has been really helpful in directing the clinicians. My final point is on the importance of psychological support. WM is a life-changing condition affecting not only the sufferer, but it also deeply affects our loved ones. And because WM is a complicated disease and we are very different how we respond to it, apparently, and not everybody understands it at first, it's difficult to explain to others. I know not only had to deal with what my diagnosis meant to me personally, having to give up things that meant a lot to me. I was very sporty, and I loved skiing with my 3 sons. And with WM, I had to say goodbye to that. But I also had to manage my children's fears that their mum might die. My solution was to consult psychologists. Not everybody can do that, and not everybody wants to go there. So when Bob, the man over there, approached me a few years ago and proposed that I run a support group to discuss these sorts of issues, I was happy to do so that people don't feel as alone and isolated as I did originally. Clearly, he's not here with me now, as the original was in Chantilly a few weeks ago. Today, I am privileged to run 2 support groups, one dedicated to mums and another for both men and women living in the London area. Those who are newly diagnosed or are struggling have somewhere to turn to share their experience. And the mums have been so generous in telling me about their travails with husbands, children, and generally dealing with WM. It can be exhausting and overwhelming at times. Access to the right psychological support for sufferers and their loved ones is almost as important as the treatment itself. I would like to wrap up with some suggestions that as a WM sufferer, I would like to see more of. As women, we are often taught to be a good girl, and doctor knows best. 1, don't be afraid to ask difficult questions. 2, know your physical limits. If you don't feel well, you know yourself the best. 3, know your disease as well as you can. I'm still learning. 4, try not to panic. We are all a very different group of symptoms, so it's not always easy to communicate them to our doctors. 5, take a person with you to your medical consultations to help with listening, or tape the conversations, something which is quite easy with our smartphones. 6, HRT. Do not dismiss the value of this for us women as we age. 7, as I mentioned, I'm now on a cocktail of medication. This took time, and I needed to persevere to find the right combination of drugs that works for me. 8, exercise. Please find something that works. There are clear studies about how women seem to be affected differently than men, prone to tiredness and depression. It does help. I'm knocking 69 now, and I'm not as fit as I should be, but I try to do the best I can. 9, I'm still learning to accept myself and the changes that have taken place. And with the help of those around me that I am lucky I can access, I am attempting to have the best life for the last part for as long as I can. 10, join a support group if you can. We are stronger together. Don't have my experience of feeling completely alone and isolated. I think of myself as a student of life, and I'd like to conclude with a short moniker from a sage. We are more than our professions. We are parents, spouses, children, friends. We are our hobbies and interests. WM does not define us. Mine are music feeding my soul from classical to anything else, and the wonderful world of Hand and Lock and their amazing classes teaching all types of gold work and beading and very much more. I've made friends in the world of mostly women, and it's just wonderful. And finally, the gift of my gorgeous grandchildren who have brought me nothing but joy. Thank you for listening.